Join the Praise Posse and myself as we chart next week's top 10 and play the best in gospel music on the D. Curtis Randall Show. Saturdays at 5 p.m. Central on UBM Praise.
It's UBM Talk on UrbanBroadcastMedia.com. Call us at 312-754-4333 and get in on the conversation.
All right, we're right back. I hope you heard that, and I didn't jump in there too quick. Jonathan, I'm going to have that thing ready for the next time, baby. I'm a little slow sometimes, but I'm going to get it together, baby. You've just heard from the D. Curtis Randall Show. That's the top 10 in 2 minutes. He has a show that comes on at UBM Praise that comes on at 5 p.m. Saturdays. That's the D. Curtis Randall Show. You need to listen to that show if you're looking for some good gospel information. We're pumping all of the stations around here in UBM, but that information you'll hear on our show all the time. Right about this time, we're going to give you the gospel top 10 from the D. Curtis Randall Show. Baby, I'm going to let you go into your comments, and then Tracy, I'll let you have your question over there. Go ahead, baby.
Okay, we have a couple announcements here. How about a suggested reading regarding tonight's topic by Lee Jenkins on money, Real Solutions to Financial Challenges by Lee Jenkins. Okay, this is Black History Month, and we are highlighting Mary Eliza Mahoney. I bet you're wondering, who the heck is Mary Eliza Mahoney? Well, you are about to know her little-known black fact. Born May 7, 1845 through January the 4th, 1926, she was the first African-American to study and work as a professional trained nurse in the United States. Graduated in 1879. Mahoney was one of the first Americans to graduate from a nursing school, and she prospered in a predominantly white society. She also challenged discrimination of the African-American race in nursing. Now, join us next week for Taking Our Faith to the Extreme in 2015.
Yeah.
Removing your setbacks for the comeback in your life. And looking for a great cause? Help New Faith Baptist Church International fight against Ebola. Go to Amazon to support the Joseph assignment. Go to www.smile.amazon.com.
Yeah, that's going to be my pastor and the First Lady coming here. Pastor Felder and First Lady will be here. Dr. Alexis. Don't let me forget to say doctor. Doctor. It's almost like Prince. No. So we're going to have them on here, and it's going to be an awesome show. I'll let you also know that starting in March 2015, I don't know if I even told you this yet, we're going to start doing a 2-hour show. So we're going to be starting from 7 o'clock. If you can't be here, you can't be here. Yeah.
Tracy is on Tuesday.
She looking at me all crazy. No, you know I'm playing with your girl. But we're going to be, by popular demand. This is what Tracy said she wanted. She said, I want 2 hours. She told me everybody wanted 2 hours. And so we're going to be going to 2 hours on Tuesday. So we're going to start in Tuesday, March the 3rd, I believe. It's going to be 2 hours from 7 to 9. You asked for it. You wanted more. Let's stay together. You got it. And you know what? I'm going to make sure I'm financially okay because I'm going to talk to Michelle to make sure I'm doing my money right. So you got a question over there, Tracy?
Yeah, question. I've heard that if your limit is $2,000 and I charge up to $1,300 and keep it within their payment, that hurts my credit. And keeping my balance on the high end of the limit. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. You need to keep
you on the
have
ball
a $2,000 limit. You need to keep your amount under 50%, because what it's saying is you're utilizing over 50% of your credit line. So that's a red. So that'll lower your credit score a little bit because they're saying, you're using a lot on your credit card. So if you have a $2,000 limit, you really probably shouldn't have over $750 if you carry a balance, which you shouldn't be carrying a balance. You should try to keep it as low as possible. Once you cross that 50% threshold, it's not a great thing.
And my other job that I do as well is a credit analyst, and I notice a lot of times when someone comes, to us and we have commercial credit, if they get, too close to that credit limit that we have, we start having it starts throwing red flags. Absolutely. Because if they're spending too much and they're not paying then we start thinking what's happening. First thing we thinking is it foreclosure? Can they get paid? Is something happen? Because a lot of time with businesses, they buy as much as they can just before they foreclose, so they can have equity. They can have receivables there, so when they sell the business, they get all your money and they get all your product, but you ain't gonna get any money back. The same way with companies, they concern themselves
Tracy
about
looking at you crazy again.
if you get too high, they're worried about the possibility of you being able to pay that debt because you're accumulating it too fast.
Is he serious?
Yes, I'm serious.
Oh no, I mean I didn't know he had that job for you. I'm sorry.
You didn't know I was a credit analyst? You just thought I was a radio person, huh? Like I was on Monday through Fridays, other than Tuesdays, I'm a bum saying I'm sorry.
Actually, I thought you was a chocolate maker.
I thought I was a chocolate Ricky Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Because he chocolate every week.
Hey, you know what? We got James over here. James, I want you to talk to me a little bit about PFS Investments. Talk to me something about that. What you do, man?
Basically, what I do is I take an educational approach towards teaching people on multiple aspects of how money works. And the main thing that I'm doing is showing them how to properly build their financial house in the right order. So everything that you start off building, you always got to start off with the foundation, right? I mean, It makes no sense to start off with the rooftop. Otherwise, it's going to collapse. So what I do is make sure that families are implementing that foundation, then I help them build up their individual layers. And the ultimate goal is to get them to financial independence.
It's interesting. And so basically, what is the start off for something like that? What do you do when you first say you meet me now and I'm trying to get to financial independence? And I am, by the way. Okay, just letting you know, I am. Right. This ain't no joke.
Okay.
Help a brother. How do we start off?
Well, the very first part that I would look at is how much income you're making. Do you have the money to even implement anything towards building your financial house? So it all starts with your income. So then the next layer I'll look at is what's known as your income protection, and that's pretty much putting in your life insurance, making sure you can save money on your home and auto insurance, making sure that you have legal protection and a will in place, because a lot of families don't have that. And then what I'll look at is making sure they are freeing up their debt as well as building up their assets at the same time, so that they can free that and have more to apply towards getting towards the financial independence number.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask this question. Before we start building our foundation, and we're working, you got a lucrative income, but you don't, like Michelle mentioned earlier, you don't know where your money is going. Okay. How do you go about trying to cut expenses? What are some tips that people need to know, what they need to cut out that they're not willing to cut out and sacrifice?
Well, I know a lot of our money that's going out, especially like towards like TV and stuff like that. We can definitely cut down on that just about looking at different resources. As far as like your insurance, make sure that you're following up with your financial services rep and having an annual follow up to see if we can help cut costs, because you may not even need that much insurance now versus a year before. So you just got to keep following up with them and make sure that you're on track.
Well, I got a couple of tips.
You get some you want to add on there?
He cut me off. He don't want to hear my tips.
I mean, you know, I know you're a financial major, but I just wanted, the guest to say something.
I totally agree. And the first thing is that, is to just write it down. Until people write it down, I don't think people really have a real understanding of where their money goes, because they get a bill, they pay it. They get a bill, they pay it. They pay this late. Until you write it down, and I mean write it down for a series of months, so you get a real understanding. Hey, what are we spending on utilities? What are we spending on gas? What are we spending eating out? What are we spending on entertainment? I think people don't have a real grasp on how much money they're actually spending, especially couples, because he's spending and she's spending. And then all of a sudden at the end of the month, how come we don't have any money? Because you both are kind of living separate financial lives.
Okay, baby, what you got to say, girl?
Anyway, she answered it because these people are so on point over here.
I mean, you stole her answer, Michelle.
I mean, my questions are basically answered, but up to. But I do want to know what percentage each month a person should start saving with. You have your tithing. For those Christians out there, you have your tithing.
For those Christians out there, there you go, baby. Yes, there you go.
For those Christians.
Take care of the Lord.
The tithing, your savings account, 401k is a little different, but in-house. What we know 10% go to the Lord, but what can if I say I want to start saving, what can I put aside monthly?
I'm sorry, go on.
Okay. Well, I always say a good rule of thumb is to start off with about 10%. Okay, so, you got your tithing and your offering, 10% go to our Lord and Savior. Always pay God first. The next thing you need to look at is paying yourself first before you start spending paying bills, paying everyone else. You got to make sure that you put your family and yourself at first priority over everything else.
So does that mean put that in savings, paying yourself first? Break that down.
Okay, so whenever I lay out a complete savings and investment program for families, we always got to set up 3 fundamental accounts. So the first one is what's known as a short-term emergency fund, and that should be funded up to at least 6 months of your income, however much that is. The second account that you need is known as your midterm savings account, and this is basically like a 2 to 5 year window. And then the third account that you need is your long-term wealth building account, and this is strictly for retirement or like college savings and investments.
But Michelle, now if I don't, in his thing, it's, if I'm not able to do that, and we were talking before, and I'm like maybe unemployed or I'm under the poverty level, and I don't see the way I can save. What can I do then?
Well, that's the first thing. The thing that he mentioned is that sometimes people have to look at their income.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, we was 6 children in my house, and my father worked 2 jobs a lot. And I understand unemployment is high, but sometimes people have to think of a way to increase their income. And that's sometimes that's just the solution. Sometimes you just have to increase your income.
But we're also talking about the fact that sometimes Brenda shouldn't go over there and buy some of that Popeye's chicken.
Absolutely.
And she should that maybe instead of spending $20-something on that Popeye's chicken, you could put that.
Cook.
You know what, Michelle? You coming back next week, girl?
No, she's not. She did a once a year pass. She's good until 2016.
But we were talking about that. Talking about that. People don't, they spend money unwisely on frivolous things, and they don't realize that.
And they're unconscious about what they're spending.
Yeah.
Because you're tired. Like today is a classic day. The traffic was bad. It's cold. I'm just going to pick up something I can't cook. Okay, that's fine. But if you do that today and then you do it again on Friday, because Friday night we don't cook. So we do it on Friday, and then you're at the movies on Saturday. And if you really look, especially the debit card has annihilated people's finances. Because you're not conscious, you're swiping. You're just swiping. And if you look at your bank statement, I've spent $300.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I've done that before, and I've looked and I'm like, my God, all these little things add up.
I be trying to tell you.
Thank you, baby. I know. You're my financial advisor until we get to Michelle over there.
No, she be in my ear, then I'll take it to your ear.
Okay, and then it just goes out my ear. But as far as maybe, people don't realize that even $20 can be a big savings.
Well, my husband and I use the envelope method. I instituted this years ago. And so what we do is at the beginning of the week, we take out X amount of dollars. And this is what we had to spend. Now, I get lunch at work for free. I'm blessed with like that. But my husband doesn't. So if you don't take your lunch and you have to buy lunch, you have X amount of dollars. And so when you run out, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And so that has helped us, over the years, just kind of put a control on what we spend every week.
Yeah, but James, that's hard, man. I'm gonna tell you something. I'm going to work one time, and I got something, but I'm smelling those burgers and fries, and then she's like, "Come on now,
man, stay away from that fast food."
The first thing you say to yourself, "I want to treat myself. I worked hard. I want to treat myself." How do we get away from that mentality of treating ourselves now instead of long-term treating ourselves?
Well, you just got to take it one day at a time, man. It's going back to what Michelle was saying. It's all about that discipline. You just got to try it. If it don't work out one day, keep trying.
Yeah, and Michelle, if we drop off, and we fail, is it okay to admit that we failed? And because a lot of times people just, I ain't got, it's almost like losing weight on in the New Year's. We try it first, and then we say, okay, I'm through. It's okay. People should understand it's okay to start again.
Absolutely. Because every time you get paid, you have a chance to start again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You always got to be in full motion.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I do want to ask this question. It's like the elephant in the room. It's the quick fix people think, but they don't understand it. So, James, I want to ask you, should bankruptcy be the last resort? When you're in so much debt and you feel like, I can't get out of this. Oh, I could go do Chapter 7, 13 or whatever and start a clean slate.
Okay.
Companies do it all the time.
Well, that's like one of my minimum expertise as far as bankruptcy. So as far as like your last resource, I'm honestly not sure about that one. But I think, again, it just goes back to knowing like exactly like how much debt you have and using that debt stacking process. and just knowing exactly where your money is being allocated. I think Michelle will be able to answer that question a little bit better than I can as far as on bankruptcy.
Well, you know, I had a personal friend that I didn't find out till afterwards that filed bankruptcy and had